I like to talk about innovation as being more of a way of life rather than something that we're doing this quarter. Innovation needs to be something on everybody's mind, not one person or one department. I think it's much the same as fitness. I've never been a 12-week challenge kind of guy because I don't understand it. I think, how about we cut back a little bit on the burgers and just increase our amount of activity? And that's called living healthily. And it's a way of life. And I think innovation is the same thing. And when we look at process, if we think about something, the term process sounds boring and quite the opposite of innovation. But what I always say is that process was created at some point. We work together to say this is the best way that we know how to do it. But it's not to say that it's the best way that we know how to do it forever. So let's go out there and be innovative. Let's always question the way that we do things. Always be open to process improvement. So process improvement is, by definition, innovation in my mind.
So you're a smart business committed to innovation, to service and to modern marketing. And you're asking, what's next? Wondering how you can become even more innovative. My name is Jürgen Strauss from InnovaBuzz, and this is the InnovaBuzz podcast, where we share all kinds of tips, advice and interview guests on all things innovation and leadership in modern marketing. Hi innovators, it's really great to be back with another episode of the InnovaBuzz podcast. I hope you've had an awesome week so far. Now I'm really excited today to have on the InnovaBuzz podcast as my guest Daniel Davis, who's the CEO of EOS Asia Pacific. So EOS is the Entrepreneurial Operating System as described in Gino Wickman's book Traction. In our discussion, Daniel talked to me about getting really clear on a business vision, clarifying and simplifying that vision for the whole leadership team as part of the EOS system. He talked to me about establishing a strong core leadership team and team structure around your business. And he talked about how to make a business happier, healthier, and more sustainable. Without further ado then, let's fly into the hive and get the buzz from Daniel Davis. Hi, I'm your host, Jürgen Strauss from InnovaBuzz, and I'm really excited to welcome to the InnovaBuzz podcast today from Sydney in Australia, Daniel Davis, who's the CEO of EOS Asia Pacific, which exists to help business coaches, trainers, and leaders become master implementers of EOS, the Entrepreneurial Operating System, as it's described by Gino Wickman in his book Traction. So welcome to the podcast, Daniel. It's a great privilege to have you here as a guest.
Thanks, Jürgen. Yeah, it's great to be on. I know we've been trying to tee it up for a while, so it's exciting to finally be here with you.
Yeah, it's great. And Marissa Smith, who was our guest on episode 130, she suggested we interview Daniel and introduced us. So thanks to Marissa and a big hello.
Yes, exactly.
All right, Daniel. So you've got a 20-plus year history of building companies, and your passion is helping entrepreneurial organizations to clarify, simplify, and achieve their vision. And we were having a bit of a chat in the preamble about that. And using EOS is one of the big ways you do that over the past several years, and building on your extensive experience that you've gathered over all those years. But before we start talking about all those things, which I'm really keen to explore, let's find out a bit more about you as a person. When you were a young child, what did you want to do when you grew up?
Funny enough, I think everyone thinks I've been into business all my life, and whilst I love work, and I got my first job at age 10, so I did fall in love with business at a very young age. I actually grew up wanting to be a cop, so since the age of 3, and actually still have a high interest in it today. I still actually do some talking at police events and have quite an involvement with the community. So yeah, I grew up wanting to be a police officer.
Oh, right. Yeah. So did you ever head down that path, or did the excitement of business and starting something at 10 take over?
Look, I enrolled in the police force actually and passed all my exams when I was 20. But I'd also gotten engaged when I was 19. So I had this looming marriage sitting on my shoulder, and And I remember passing all my tests, booking in to go to police academy, and looking at their annual income. And back then it was about 26,000 a year. And I was thinking, geez, how am I going to make ends meet? And my first business opportunity came up. So at the age of 21, I started my first business. So I missed out on going into the police, but I'm sure I would have had a lot of fun had I gone.
So how did you come to kind of learn so much about business and setting up businesses? Because starting a business a serious business, I guess, at the age of 21 is quite a big step.
Yeah, look, to be honest, most of it was just in the early days, just by accident. I had started working in a service station when I was 19 and enjoyed the retail environment, started managing a store, then managing 2 stores. And as I mentioned, I got engaged, and I just enjoyed the pace of looking after a retail environment and managing staff. And then my first opportunity came up in the Blue Mountains when my boss was looking at a potential site, another store he was going to build, and he decided it was too far out of Sydney. And I remember being there myself and thinking this would be a great location for a store. And I ended up talking with him in the car on the way back from visiting the place. And I said, what would it take to get into a store like that? And so the discussion, one thing led to another, and I ended up getting my first store. So I kind of fell into it, and then I had to learn how to run it. Yeah. So I learned that there's more to running a business than just the physical work. There's also understanding how everything else in the background goes into supporting the success of a business. But a lot of it was just hard work. Open the store at 5 a.m, work till 11 at night, and learn the ropes as I go. So I did that 7 days a week, and did that for about 3 years, and the store just grew. And I actually lived at the store, and it was just hard work, but a lot of passion, and made lots and lots of mistakes, but love the journey. And I'm very grateful for the fact that I got my opportunity at such a young age, when you have lots of energy and not so many responsibilities. Also, I didn't have young kids or anything like that at home, so it made it a little bit easier.
So you could invest a lot of time.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. So is there a story from that time that highlights a little bit, how you learnt and all the back end things that you talked about, and how you ended up making that business a success?
Sure. So in that particular store, a lot of it was just hands-on learning. I was lucky or fortunate to have a few mentors. So that first store was an IGA store, an IGA supermarket. And I had a couple of older guys who had been in retail for a long time, and they helped me learn the ropes. So I was fortunate to have some good mentors that taught me at least the retail side of running a good business. And then by the age of 26, I had 3 stores, 70 staff. Things had grown. And shortly after that, I came to Sydney and I invested into a friend's company. And it didn't go quite to plan. Ended up losing initially $1 million, and then another few million chasing the problem. And it was at that point, so around 27, 28, that I actually started to really have a desire to understand the science behind business. What does it take to run a great company? And it kind of sparked that passion for wanting to learn more. So it was, I guess you could say, it was through failure that led to me wanting to, learn what makes an actual great company tick. Yeah. And so I ended up seeking out coaches and consultants, and found one consultant that I really loved working with, ended up investing in that company and then buying it out completely. And I've been in the space ever since, so probably the last 12 years.
Right. Okay. So you kind of took over the consulting company that taught you the mechanics of business, and then built that from there.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of that came from the fact that at the time it was, and some of the listeners may relate to this, is at the time that I was going through this challenge, you could say, it was really very, very tough. At that point I had 2 young sons at home and a wife at home, and, So doing 18 hours a day, 6 and 7 days a week was not such an easy thing on them. I mean, it's one thing to work those hours, but to have your family punished for a business struggling is another thing. And I felt quite alone at the time. And what I found intriguing was when I would go to school events, for example. My kids were fortunate enough to be in private school, and I'd see all these other parents, and they, my perception was that they were great. Everyone's got their act together and they all know what they're doing. But once I started to have some discussions with them, and I was talking about how some of the challenges I faced, I was amazed to find out how many people actually struggled with business. And I think it's something that's a little bit unspoken. Probably people have a lot of pride. And so, that was the thing that kind of led to me wanting to help other people too.
So when did you discover EOS, and how did you discover it?
I discovered it back in 2014. So I got invited to go on a trip to Richard Branson's island, Nikkor Island. And as we arrived, unfortunately, there was an event where one of Richard's Virgin Galactic flights had crashed in testing. And so as we arrived and everyone's excited to meet him, he flew out, and they asked me to step in and do a presentation, a talk. And I happened to be talking, and one of the people on the trip happened to be an EOS implementer. And I had never even heard of EOS, but she ended up saying, hey, you should read this book called Traction. I think it's very much in line with your business philosophies. And I read Traction by Gino and fell in love. Shortly after, contacted him and said, I love your work. And I ended up flying to the US again and doing my training to be a professional implementer, and came back and set it up in Australia. So again, something that kind of happened by accident.
That's interesting. So how did you come about to get invited to Nikkor Island? Is one obvious question out of that conversation.
Funny enough, there's a group called Changemakers, Rule Breakers here in Australia, and they are a group of entrepreneurs who do such trips. The people who run it, Billy and Fiona, are friends with Richard, and we were very fortunate to be invited along. And it was just through my contacts, somebody recommended that I should go, and they contacted me and said, how would you like to go? And I said, well, that's a pretty simple question.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. So it was pretty cool.
It's an amazing opportunity, yeah. And it led to a change that you weren't expecting.
Exactly. And I was fortunate 2 years later to take a whole group of my clients across with me. So, I mean, obviously when I went, everyone said, wow, we'd really love to meet Richard. And so I worked with Billy and Fiona to arrange another trip, and a whole bunch of clients and myself went back again. So, we're very lucky.
Now, with EOS, the Entrepreneurial Operating System, so I mentioned Marissa earlier, I think, what was it, episode 130, that so we spent quite a bit of time talking about what EOS exactly is and how it's structured and so on. So we won't rehash that conversation here. I'd refer the listeners to listen to that episode to learn some more about it, and certainly read the book Traction. It's an awesome book. It really goes into some great detail, and the structure in there, I love that structure.
Yes.
We were talking in the preamble about vision and helping people to implement their business vision. So tell us a little bit more about how you go about that. How do you clarify the vision, first of all? Because people I suspect that a lot of people are not really clear about their vision, and that is part of the problem.
Yeah, it's well spotted. So when we take the clients through the EOS process, otherwise known as the client journey, we take them through a series of sessions, and these are full day sessions. 2 of those days are around clarifying, simplifying that vision. So all we're really wanting to do there is get the leadership team together, because that's who we work with. So we get the leadership team together, and we spend some time clarifying what do we really want from this business, where are we going, and how are we going to get there. And we take them through a process of questions to sort that out. And it's a really cool process, and it gets everyone at the end of that on the same page, crystal clear, and all rowing in the same direction. It is just a matter of clarifying and simplifying that vision. Everyone's got it; it's in their head, but perhaps we're not always completely aligned. So through some great discussion, we end up getting that alignment.
And do you have specific processes that you go about there, or is a lot of that based on your own experience and your own consulting work?
Yeah, great question. So it is very much a process that we follow. So this was all created by Gino over the last 20 years of developing EOS. And so we just follow a set process that goes through, and it answers 8 specific questions to help get us clear on what that business plan is. So we go through and we define what are the core values. So who are we? What's our core focus? What do we do amazingly well? What's our 10-year target? So the big goal, so everyone can see the big picture. What's our overarching marketing strategy? And then we just say, what's our 3-year picture? What does it look like 3 years from now? Our 1-year plan, and then our 90-day rocks. If you look, we're just breaking it down into bite-sized chunks. And then the final piece is just what's our issues list? What are the things we need to handle at some point in the future? And so what we walk away with is a one-page business plan that answers all of those 8 questions. And it just brings everybody into alignment in a really simple way. Yeah, it's a great structure.
And I hadn't been familiar with the book Get a Grip, which is kind of a metaphor or a story around that whole process. And Marissa alerted me to that. I've since read that. That's a really great outline of how it actually works in real life, if you like. I guess it's a fictional story, but based on how the process actually works, and with real examples in terms of, people not being aligned initially, and people misunderstanding motives of others, and that leading to misunderstandings and tensions, and then wrong people in the wrong job, and all of those things come into it.
Yeah, exactly. So the Traction book is very much the science of EOS, and Get a Grip is kind of that business fable. So sometimes we will recommend to a potential client to read Get a Grip, especially if they're kind of that CEO, visionary type person. Sometimes they'll enjoy reading Get a Grip more than they will Traction, just because it's a business fable and it's easier to read versus a general manager and more analytical person will enjoy Traction. Yeah, more so. Both great books. Yeah.
So, tell me about the consulting business that you had. Did you start off by implementing EOS in there when you discovered that, or did you already have those fundamentals more or less in place?
Yeah. Look, we actually had a system that we were following that my previous business partner had developed, and we had continued spending money researching new ways and new techniques to further develop it and make it better. And when I found EOS, I think what I found was it was everything that we were trying to do simplified. It was simpler and it was faster. And I looked at it and thought, wow, this just makes sense. I'm not going to try and copy or reinvent the wheel. I could see the extent of work that Gino had done. And I just reached out to him and I said, look, how does this work? And I started out as just an implementer. And then a few years later said, look, we need to set up a global presence. So came down here and set up the Asia Pacific region so that we could have implementers trained and supported locally. Yeah. And then I let go of all of the work that I'd done previously and just fully adopted EOS. Yep.
All right. So do you have a great success story, and what are some of the outcomes that implementing EOS in a business that might be struggling, where the executive might be working those 18-hour days and 7 days a week and not have time for their family and other things that are really important in their life? What are some of the outcomes that come out of implementing EOS well?
Sure. So now we've worked with locally a few hundred companies implementing EOS. And in terms of what a typical journey looks like, I think you spelled it out quite right. A lot of the times the owners, the business partners are feeling like they're carrying a lot of weight themselves, doing a lot of the work. Our job is to help them establish a strong performing leadership team, and we take them through a process to do that. It's not an overnight process. We typically work with a company for around 2 years, and it takes about 6 to 12 months. That first 6 to 12 months is really filling the room with the right people in the right seats, and then helping them, equipping them with the tools that they need to succeed in their roles. And typically throughout that time period, it's a matter of getting clarity in the organization, firstly around that vision, and then secondly, we really get that structure right and the metrics to be able to measure what's working and what's not working. And as we say, quarter by quarter, we just improve the company. We improve the leadership team and its abilities. And we have a belief at the core that as goes the leadership team, so goes the rest of the organization. They'll follow suit. Kind of like being great parents in a family unit. So in terms of success, we've seen companies that have grown from 5 staff through to 50 or 60 staff. But whilst those numbers are impressive and seeing the results like that, I think the main thing that I would certainly like to fly the EOS flag to is what we do is we make companies happier, healthier, and more sustainable. So the business owners and the staff enjoy their work far more. The company performs better financially and for its customers, and the business itself is stronger and more sustainable for the longer term. So it's not all about just growth. It's also about the other factors that come into what builds a great business.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's a really great point, because a lot of the times people start a business or go into business because they feel that will give them the freedom and the life they yearn, which they can't get when they're employed by a company or by somebody else running their career, if you like. And
exactly.
And the reality tends to be quite different, doesn't it?
Definitely. Unfortunately, that's the case. Yeah.
All right. So in terms of your role then for EOS Asia Pacific, what are the challenges, and what's your vision for that role and for EOS?
So with EOS Asia Pacific, our job is to find, identify, and recruit the right people to join our community. So we typically consist of we're a group of entrepreneurs. So all of us have had a background in business. Typically, we've owned our own businesses and built them and sold them. And perhaps we're at a point in our life where we want to now help others on that same journey. So it's a matter of identifying these right people to join the community, to have a passion for helping others, then train them and support them to be masterful EOS implementers. And so that's my primary role with EOS Asia Pacific. In terms of our challenge, our largest challenge is really getting the EOS brand known here locally. So in the US, it's really becoming quite well known. There's more than 200 professional implementers there now, and the brand is really well recognized. Having been there for nearly 18 years, obviously it's got some advantages. But here locally, we only officially launched EOS Asia Pacific about 15 months ago. So, so we're still relatively new. So a lot of the people that we're talking to haven't yet heard of EOS. So it's all quite new. But So that's one of the challenges we have is just educating the market that we're here, wanting to grow, and we're looking for the right people. So, and unfortunately, not everyone is the right person for our business. We're quite particular on who we take on board.
So the EOS implementers, they're essentially business coaches and mentors for the businesses that you then want to help.
Correct. Yeah, many of them have a coaching background, but also many of them have simply got an entrepreneurial business background and may not have been a coach or consultant before. Perhaps they've worked on boards, and perhaps they've enjoyed helping other companies, but haven't necessarily been a business coach or consultant before. So some of them come from just a business background, but they have that yearning passion inside them. They want to help other business owners, but they're not quite sure how and haven't seen the right framework. And we offer that framework for them to be able to do that.
So what is the role of the EOS implementer then when they start working with a client?
It's basically to take the client through the EOS proven process, take them through that process and help the client implement EOS into their business, implement the Entrepreneurial Operating System into their organization. So that's what they do. So they just follow a process.
Okay. But a lot of it's about educating that client and making sure that they actually remove themselves from the process at some point, right? And you talked about a 2-year time frame.
Correct. Yep. So we're all about creating independence, not dependence. So it's about them becoming independent and being able to, flourish and prosper on their own. So they will continue to use the EOS process that we take them on, and they reach a point of what we call graduation. It means that we've taught them everything. EOS is implemented into their business really well. And we've got a way that we scientifically measure that. So we've got a score that we do to confirm that we've got it in. And then they start running the process themselves. We're always there in the background should they need us, but they run that process themselves, the clients. So our job is to get them to that point.
And what does a typical client look like for you for the EOS implementer?
So we work with companies that are 10 to 250 staff, and they're forward thinking, they're wanting to grow, and they're appreciative of learning. They're open and honest with their people, so they are people focused. They're our typical client. So kind of in that 10 to 250 employee stage is where we do really well, and privately held.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah. So decision making's in the board itself. Yeah.
Yeah. We work specifically with the leadership team of those organizations. Yep.
Okay. Now, I'm a process person from way back, and I love frameworks and structure, and I think EOS is a really great framework and structure. But one of the things I often come up against when I talk to people about processes and following systems and processes is they say, well, we're an innovative organization. We need to be creative. We need the freedom to be creative. So how do you convince people that, being innovative and pushing the boundaries and being creative is actually not at odds with a structure and a process to follow?
Yeah, that's a great one. And we do come across that quite often. And so we talk about systemizing and structuring the work that is repeated work, the core, the fundamentals of the business, so that you then have the time to be innovative. So our job isn't to stifle innovation. It's actually to help innovation. So if we structure and systemize the predictable, then it should allow you to have more time to do the unknown and do that creative work and enjoy being innovative. So it's certainly not about stifling innovation. It's actually there to support innovation.
Yeah, that's a great explanation. And also, you touched on freeing up time, but also earlier you were talking about removing the stress and the worry and creating a much more pleasant environment for people to work in so they enjoy their work, and all of that contributes to more innovation, I think.
Exactly. Yeah, look, and it's an interesting thing around process and making a happy workplace. The subject of innovation, for example, when it comes up, because I deal with a lot of technology companies, and the subject of innovation comes up quite often in conversation. I'm also a chair at the CEO Institute, and our groups are often talking about innovation and disruption. And I like to talk about innovation as being more of a way of life rather than something that we're doing this quarter.
Mm-hmm.
Innovation needs to be something on everybody's mind, not one person or one department. I think it's much the same as fitness. I've never been a 12-week challenge kind of guy because I don't understand it. I think, how about we cut back a little bit on the burgers and just increase our amount of activity? And that's called living healthily, and it's a way of life. And I think innovation is the same thing. And when we look at process, if we think about something, the term process sounds boring and, quite the opposite of innovation. But what I always say is that process was created at some point. We work together to say this is the best way that we know how to do it. But it's not to say that it's the best way that we know how to do it forever. So let's go out there and be innovative. Let's always question the way that we do things, and always be open to process improvement. So process improvement is, by definition, innovation in my mind.
Mm. Yeah, that's right. So you've got a baseline to work from, and you're not constantly trying to figure out, well, how do we keep the wheels moving? The wheels are moving, so then you can focus on how can we improve what's happening.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah, great advice. And I love the analogy of the diet and fitness thing because, I see that so much. People go on a diet for a while, they lose some weight, they celebrate a success, and then they go back to what they were doing before. And
exactly.
And the issues come back. So they haven't really learned anything. It's about actually establishing a lifestyle, as you say.
That's right. And I think that the same concept can be taken for a company, with its people, one, living healthily, but second, being innovative. Innovation isn't attending a conference and thinking that you're going to change the world, attending a 2-day conference. Innovation is, instilling in everyone within the organization, hey, let's always be questioning the way that we do things. And, small improvements here and there add up to being the best in your industry. And sometimes through that mindset of everybody contributes to innovation, sometimes you stumble across some big things that are considered, wow, look at how innovative they are. But it's not, it shouldn't be a goal to do for the quarter. It should be a way of behaving and part of your company's, just operating basis.
Yeah, that's right. And in some ways, it comes back to the vision and the values and making sure everybody is on board with those and is clear that, that for this organization, that is part of the values and vision that we have.
Exactly. Yeah.
All right. This is really fascinating, Daniel. I'd love to explore that some more, but I certainly encourage our listeners to read Traction by Gino Wickman. As you say, that's the science of the process. And then there's the Get a Grip, which is kind of the story about how it worked in that particular hypothetical example. I'd like to move on to the Buzz, which is our innovation round, and it's designed to help our audience. And they're primarily innovators and leaders in their field. And we'd like to get some tips from your experience. So hopefully for the 5 questions we've got, you'll give us some really insightful answers that people will be inspired and go away and do something awesome today. So first one is, what's the number one thing anyone needs to do to be more innovative?
I think that they need to be open to questioning things, be happy to walk in the opposite direction. Don't be afraid to think differently. And and also understand and respect that 99% of the people around you never will. Again, this morning I come into the building. So my office is here at Barangaroo. I get here typically at 7:30 in the morning, and it is empty. I ride the lift by myself. It feels like a luxury experience. And if you go down there just 1 hour later at 8:30, it's crazy town. People are jamming into these lifts, and it's you got to stop 15 times before you get to your floor, and people are queuing up for coffees and all of those things. And I think, do the people in this crowd, do they not think, hey, you know what, maybe what I'll do is I'll come to work an hour earlier. I could ride the train without 5,000 people sitting next to me. I could ride the lift by myself. I could not have a queue for coffee. And maybe, just maybe, I could do the same thing in the afternoon. Maybe I could knock off at 4 instead, or stay back till 6, and I wouldn't have to be crammed into those situations. And the same at lunchtime. But you know what? They don't. And I think it comes down to that sheep mentality of everyone just follows the crowd. I'm intrigued by human behavior. And so my number one thing is, don't be afraid to think differently and look and question, why is it done that way? And could it be improved?
Yeah, great advice. Yeah, I always wonder about that sheep mentality. You see something happen and one person stops, and then a couple of people stop, and all of a sudden you've got a crowd because of that sheep mentality. Yeah.
Yep.
All right. What's the best thing you've done to develop new ideas?
I think the fact that I'm a dreamer. So just looking and questioning why are things done a certain way. I mean, just what I gave there was a simple example, but I remember this being a part of who I am since a young age. I remember riding the bus one day with my mum, and I think I was about 5 years old. And from a young age, I've been a bit of a germaphobe, probably because of my mum, actually. She was pretty clean. But I remember saying to my mum one day, I said, I don't understand, Mum. Like, it doesn't make any sense. You go to the bathroom and then you wash your hands with the soap, but then you've got to touch the tap again. Doesn't that completely defeat the purpose? And she said, well, you've got to turn the tap off. And I said, but that's just, you're touching the germs again. It doesn't make any sense. And I said, you know what, Mum? Taps shouldn't have handles. You should be able to just put your hand there. And I remember her laughing at me saying, like, how's that ever going to be possible? And, nowadays that's considered the norm, right?
That's right.
So
yeah.
I think that the best thing you can do to develop new ideas, new products, is to simply have that ability to dream and question, how can it be done better? We have these amazing gifts in life called our mind, but unfortunately from a young age, we're told to not dream.
Yeah,
if you look
that's
school,
right.
Pay attention and listen what I'm going to tell you. I'm going to talk about, something that was a school system developed in the 50s, and you're going to sit there and take notes. And it's a shame. I think we need to really encourage people to dream more.
Yeah, that's great advice, and I love the analogy. I'd sometimes think back when I was a kid, I used to put things on little cards, and I loved to categorize stuff in cards. It was sort of the hard copy version of a database, if you like, and I always remember having to learn a whole lot of stuff and thinking to myself, well, if you don't have to clutter up your mind with all that information, you could come up with ideas all the time, and what you need is the information in some form with you all the time, but not necessarily filling up your mind. So this card system was my kind of approach to try to do that. Of course, now we've got these little telephones in our pocket, so
that's right.
So basically we're there.
Well, you were on the right path.
Yeah, I was on the right path, just the mechanics weren't quite feasible.
That's right. No, that's great.
Yeah. Well, so what's your favorite tool or system for improving productivity and allowing you to be more innovative? It's kind of a Dorothy Dix question, isn't it?
Look, number one tool for innovation, I believe, is people. I still think that our minds are amazing. We can dream up amazing things, and that's ultimately the source of innovation. So people and leveraging them, a lot of them, we've got so much talent within our organizations that I believe is untapped. In fact, it's a bit disheartening sometimes when I see people always bringing in external consultants to try and solve a problem. I'm like, one thing EOS believes is helping tap into that ability of the people within your organization. We want to make them stronger and realize their talent. So, and we teach them. It's built, it's kind of baked into our system, is for us not to be answering the questions for them, but for them to be learning to empower themselves and answer their own questions. And in terms of, obviously, improving productivity and supporting innovation, of course, I'm going to have a bias towards EOS. It really is a system that helps bring that vision into reality. That's our whole reason for existing. So EOS certainly supports innovation.
Yeah, I love your take on that in terms of leveraging people better. And some of the principles of EOS, or any really good system for that matter, is that you free up people to be able to kind of do more of, or bring their special skills and talents to the fore, isn't it? And
yeah, that's right. It really is. And I think even the same with parenting. I look at my kids. I've got two boys now that are 14 and 12. Actually, we just had one last week, so we've got three boys now.
Oh, okay. Congratulations.
Yeah, thanks. And I'm always talking to the older boys about just understand the gift that you have, in your mind. You've got amazing abilities, but you need to tap into it. So, and just realize how brilliant you are. I think a lot of people underestimate their own intelligence and creativity. So, I really feel blessed to be spending most of my time in boardroom with the leadership teams of companies and helping them have that same realization.
Yeah. All right. That's great. Now, what's the best way to keep a project or a client on track?
I think it's a combination of a few things. Number one, if people are not passionate about something, it's going to be very difficult. So, I always believe we have to all agree that this is the right thing that we should be working on. You have people's buy-in. They understand the why behind why we're doing something. And then back that up with hard work and discipline. And of course, EOS provides some clarity around what that looks like and a framework to keep them on track. So it's a combination of a few things.
Great advice. So, understand the why, which fuels the passion, right? And being aligned with the vision, and then be prepared to put in the work.
Exactly. Yep.
Excellent. So what's the number one thing you think anyone can do to differentiate themselves?
I think that just being authentic. Like I said earlier, the thing around fitting in with everyone. I think a lot of people like to think that they're authentic and unique, but again, my observations say the opposite. A lot of people just grow up and follow the standard path. I'm going to grow up and I'm going to buy a house and I'm going to get a job and I'm going to get a car and I'm going to drive to work and spend an hour in traffic each way, and or jam onto that train and arrive at 8:30. I think just be authentic, and that alone will differentiate you from the rest of the crowd, because you'll be doing things the way that you think is the best, and not trying to fit in with everyone else. Authenticity is something that people, I think, really appreciate and value too. So that would be my thing.
Yeah, certainly. I think you're right. People do appreciate and value authenticity. If I guess it's recognizing that in others is probably easy. Well, I don't know if it's easy, but easier than perhaps understanding yourself and bringing the self-awareness as to, are you just going with the flow, or are you looking to establish your own values and follow those? Yeah,
exactly. I think really look, and I think there's a cool statement that I've seen on T-shirts and things, and it's like, question everything. And I guess it depends in the context of how you're doing that. Some people might be taking it in a negative way around questioning questioning the world, but I think question everything is something that one can take on to just ensure that they're happy and living a great life. Question the way things are done and question yourself. And are you doing things the right way? And could you improve? I think it's a gift to be able to ask that question of ourselves. And usually that leads to us coming up with better ways to do things, even if it's just our personal life, like what we were discussing earlier, looking after ourselves, health and fitness, and going to bed on time at night. Sounds funny, but those little things add up to living a healthy lifestyle.
That's right. That's right. Great advice. And I was speaking with Ciel Ellis on the podcast, so check out that episode when you get a chance if you're listening to this, because she talked about developing that self-awareness and building habits using journaling. So journaling was kind of the thing, because it strikes me that let's take the healthy lifestyle as an example. So there's days when I might go to bed late, or there's days when I might not get out in the morning and ride my bike, and I feel bad about those things when after the fact, and then you tend to beat yourself up a little bit. But that's not really about that, and it doesn't change the fact that I am living a healthy lifestyle if I kind of don't follow the rules, as it were, every day. But it's having the self-awareness and making sure that overall the behaviour and what's the right word? The behaviour and what I'm doing actually is consistent with that.
Agreed. Look, we have a saying in EOS, around do the right things most of the time. That's ultimately the goal.
Yeah.
Trying to do something all of the time will just lead to you, like you say, feeling like a failure, because we're all human. We're all going to have those mornings where, we're tired, or we've overdone it the day before, and we just need a rest. And I'm a 5 a.m. guy. I'm up every day and I hit the gym and exercise. But there are those days where I just say, no, you know what? This morning I need that extra hour of sleep. Just going to have a rest. But having that self-awareness and then the discipline to make sure tomorrow I'm up and, 5 days out of 7, I'm doing that exercise, So, it's healthy lifestyle is something that you just, you have to be not too crazy about in terms of, not overeat burgers, for example. That's good. That'll drive me insane. I love burgers. I just back it up with exercise to burn it off.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and there are healthier burgers than.
Yeah, that's right.
Than one particular brand that we won't mention.
Yes, that's right.
So, what's the future for your business then, and for EOS here in Australia in particular, but also throughout Asia?
So, for EOS, it's exciting times. Funny enough, that the company's called EOS Worldwide, but has only, to be honest, been in America, North America. Up until the past kind of 4 or 5 years, we've started to get implementers around the world. And so we are truly becoming a worldwide organization now. Having the Asia Pacific region set up is the beginning. We're looking now to set up in Europe and some other parts of the world. So that's something that's exciting and is in the pipeline for us as an organization. So it's exciting that we're going to be able to share EOS with more people and build that EOS community of implementers. It's a beautiful thing to be part of, and the work that we do is very rewarding. So just to be involved with helping build that, that's my passion. I love working with like-minded people who have the same passion of helping other businesses succeed and grow. So that's what the future looks like for me. Just continuing doing what I do, and also working with my clients. I love actually being an implementer. Mm-hmm. That's actually my number one business passion. I love being in this room and working with clients to help them achieve what it is that they want to achieve. So that's what the future looks like for me.
All right. Well, sounds fascinating. We'll keep an eye on the growth of EOS worldwide, and certainly keep in touch to follow your progress. So thanks, Daniel. This has been really great. So what's the number one piece of advice you'd give to any business owner then who wants to be a leader in innovation and productivity?
For me, it would be build yourself the best leadership team that you can. So it's going to do two things. Number one, it'll free you up to be more creative and innovative. But you'll also be building an amazing team around you. So I think we've all heard from highly successful people like Richard Branson and many others of that same caliber that they'll all say, surround yourself with the smartest or best people that you can. And I'm a firm believer in that. I don't think it's a choice. It's actually essential to success and leading your field. And so just build yourself an amazing leadership team. And to clarify what I mean by that too, that doesn't mean when I say finding the best people, that doesn't mean you have to go out and, buy yourself $1 million people. I'm saying build yourself the best leadership team. You'll be amazed who you've got within your organization who just haven't been fully tapped into yet. And I see that every day with some of the teams that I work with. Some of them are in their 20s and they're on a leadership team, and it's amazing watching them grow and their abilities. So it's not about having to get the most experienced person in the world. Sometimes you've got amazing people within your organization, and they're only early on in their careers. But their passion and enthusiasm and intelligence, it's there just waiting to be tapped into.
Yeah. Well, that's really great advice. And then, of course, you can invest in those people as well, particularly if they're young. Investing in them is going to be a long-term payoff, isn't it?
Oh, exactly. 100%.
All right. Well, this has been absolutely fascinating, Daniel. Where can people reach out to you and say thanks for what you've shared with us
So if they go to eosimplementers.com.au, that's our local website. You can also visit eosworldwide.com. And you can even read it if you want to pop me an email directly. You're welcome to. It's ddavis@eosworldwide.com.au. And we'll happily help you guys. Anyone's got any questions, don't be afraid to reach out and ask. We're very much a help-first company. We love helping people. And if they're reading Traction and they're like, oh, I wonder how that works, by all means, just pop me an email and we'll answer it for you.
Wonderful. Thanks, Daniel. And we'll put the links to all of those in the show notes so that people can just click on and get in touch with you.
Great. Yeah, I've really enjoyed my time, Jürgen. Thanks for having me on.
Okay. Now, finally, who would you like me to interview on a future InnovaBuzz podcast and why?
Oh, good question. You've got me on the spot here now.
Sorry, I didn't want to do any gotchas, but
now I have to think quick. Who would I like you to interview? Now we've been talking a lot about Richard Branson, but then you're going to ask me how do I get in contact with Richard?
Yeah, well, that would be the follow-up question, yeah.
Another challenge altogether. You know who would be really interesting? There's a couple of people who I think would be great for this. So one would be Fiona Chalk from Changemakers Rule Breakers, and talking to her, she's the one who actually runs these trips to Nikkor Island and some other locations. So she deals with some really cool and innovative people from all around the world, so not just locally here in Australia. So I think that she'd be great to talk to. And then I've got a couple of others that I might talk to you about offline and line up for you. I'll have a chat with them first to see that they're okay for me to put them on.
All right. Yeah. Really appreciate that. Thanks, Daniel. So Fiona, look out for an invitation from us, the InnovaBuzz podcast, courtesy of Daniel Davis. Yeah. So thanks for sharing your time so generously and your insights with us today on the InnovaBuzz podcast. You've really delved into EOS some more for us, and following on from that episode with Marissa. So I certainly encourage people to dig deeper, take on board the advice of Daniel today. And I wish you all the best, Daniel, and let's keep in touch.
Excellent. Thanks, Jürgen.
I hope you enjoyed meeting Daniel and hearing more about the Entrepreneurial Operating System and the great advice he shared with us. The combination of practical business experience with a sound framework and system like EOS is certainly very powerful. I'd love to know what you took away from Daniel's interview. Leave a comment below the blog post, which can be found at innovabiz.co/Daniel Davis. That is DANIELDAVIS. All lowercase, all one word, innovabiz.co/Daniel Davis. You'll also find contact information for getting in touch with Daniel there. Now, Daniel suggested I interview Fiona Chalk of Changemakers Rule Breakers on a future InnovaBuzz podcast. So Fiona, keep an eye on your inbox for an invitation from us to the InnovaBuzz podcast, courtesy of Daniel Davis. Stay connected. Head on over to iTunes or Stitcher or Pocket Casts and subscribe to the InnovaBuzz podcast so you make sure you'll never miss another episode. We'd also love you to leave us a review because what you think matters. Take some of the ideas you've heard today and apply them in your business. Any thoughts, ideas, suggestions or questions, share them in the comments below the blog post. And remember, if you want to get better marketing results than you ever have, join our fantastic LinkedIn community at the Transformational Marketing Academy. All you have to do is go to innovabiz.co/TMAC. It's free to join. Hope to see you there soon. Until next time, I'm Jürgen Strauss from InnovaBiz. Remember to be awesome and keep innovating.